Have you ever felt your energy quietly drain in someone's presence without any obvious conflict or abuse? Sometimes the most damaging people in our lives don't openly attack or hurt us. Instead, they operate subtly, silently chipping away at our emotional and mental well-being. These individuals often work through unconscious means, masks and shadows, projections and complexes. In the words of Carl Jung, people have complexes. What is not so well known is that complexes can have us. In other words, the hidden wounds and unconscious patterns driving a person can possess them, turning them into unwitting instruments of psychological harm. Speaking directly to you, the viewer, let's explore 6 types of people who, through their own unexamined psyche, can quietly wreak havoc on your spirit. We'll navigate this journey with Jung's insights into the persona, the masks we wear, the shadow, the dark parts we hide, projection, seeing our own traits in others, complexes, emotional traps from past trauma, and the unconscious forces that shape behavior. As we delve into each type, ask yourself, do any of these sound familiar? Perhaps you've met these people or felt their covert influence. By understanding the psychology beneath their actions, you empower yourself to protect your well-being and take steps toward your own individuation, becoming your true self. Let's begin. 1. The unconscious manipulator. They never shout or demand, yet somehow you always end up doing what they want. You might sense it only in hindsight, that sinking feeling that your kindness was leveraged, your boundaries sidestepped. The unconscious manipulator is the person who pulls your strings without you noticing. It could be a friend who constantly relies on your help, but frames it as, "You're the only one I trust with this." Or a family member who guilt-trips you with sighs and sad eyes until you concede to their needs. They are masters of the subtle gesture and implied obligation. Importantly, they often don't realize they're being manipulative. Their behavior is driven by an unconscious fear or need. Jungian psychology helps us see what's happening beneath the surface. This type of person may be driven by an unconscious complex, perhaps a fear of abandonment or a need for control born from childhood chaos. That buried anxiety operates behind the scenes, pressuring them to secure your affection and loyalty by any means. Jung noted that when a complex is activated, the unity of consciousness is disrupted and the intentions of the will are impeded. In simpler terms, a person in the grip of a complex can behave in ways they themselves don't fully understand or intend. The unconscious manipulator might genuinely see themselves as vulnerable or in need of rescue, not recognizing the quiet emotional blackmail they exert. They wear a facade of innocence, while their shadow, the hidden part of their psyche that craves power or security, pulls the levers. You, on the receiving end, feel torn. You care about this person. They're not overtly cruel after all. Yet you regularly feel drained, used, or resentful after interacting with them. It's as if they transfer their anxiety onto you, leaving you responsible for their problems. You might ask yourself in frustration, why do I always end up giving in? The answer often lies in the invisible dynamics of the unconscious. This manipulator has tapped into your empathy and kindness, programming your sense of duty through subtle cues. Over time, this silent erosion of your willpower and energy can lead to burnout, self-doubt, and quiet anger at the imbalance. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking it. Remember, someone else's unconscious fears are not your responsibility. You can care for others without carrying them. By shining a light on these hidden strings, you regain the power to choose, to help out of love, rather than coercion, or to gently say no without guilt. Have you felt this type of subtle control? If so, take heart. Awareness is your ally. As you'll see with each type, understanding the unconscious motive cracks the code of the manipulation. Next, let's look at another kind of silent saboteur. One who doesn't so much pull your strings as wear a convincing mask that hides their true intentions. 2. The persona bearer, the two-faced charmer. This type is disarming, even charming. They present to you the perfect face. Maybe it's the supportive coworker who always compliments you in meetings, only for you to later discover they undermined you behind closed doors. Or the new friend who showers you with kindness and attention, but somehow your own needs never penetrate the glossy veneer of their performative concern. The persona bearer lives through a mask, what Jung called the persona, a socially acceptable identity worn to impress others. On the surface, they seem harmless, even benevolent. But there's a catch. You never see their true face. Everything is an act, curated to maintain an image. And trusting a mask is dangerous, because eventually it slips. Carl Jung described the persona as a kind of mask designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. The persona bearer is someone who has become identified with their mask, so much so that genuine emotions and authenticity are sacrificed. They might project an aura of friendship, confidence, or morality, but it feels too good to be true, because often it is. Spend enough time with them, and you notice inconsistencies. Empathetic words not matched by actions, promises that evaporate, or a smiling presence that conceals passive-aggressive digs. Their true self is hidden behind that polished exterior. Perhaps they hide insecurity, envy, or selfish motives, but you wouldn't know, because the whole point of a persona is that you're not supposed to see behind it. Being close to a persona bearer can silently damage you in a few ways. First, you might pour your trust and emotional investment into them, only to realize you've been engaging with a hollow shell. When you inevitably uncover a hint of their real feelings, maybe you catch them in a lie, or notice how insincere they are when others aren't watching. You feel betrayed and disoriented. You question your own judgment. How could someone who seemed so kind be so cold? Second, because they never reveal vulnerability or flaws, you may start to feel inferior or emotionally starved in the relationship. It's one-sided, all give and no take, or vice versa. Your emotional needs certainly don't penetrate their mask. The persona bearer's friendship or love is conditional, tied to the role they play. From a Jungian view, this person is trapped in what Jung warned of as identifying with the persona, losing oneself in the role. One could say, with a little exaggeration, that the persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is, Jung wrote. Such an individual may have forgotten who they really are, prioritizing appearance over authenticity. And here's the irony. When someone suppresses their real self so completely, their neglected shadow often grows restless beneath the mask. You might catch sudden glimpses of anger, jealousy, or cruelty flashing out from them, inexplicable and out of character, the shadow leaking through the persona's cracks. Those moments can be shocking and hurtful, leaving you feeling like you trusted a stranger. If you suspect you're dealing with a persona bearer, take a step back. Don't be blinded by the dazzling surface. Test the waters by gently inviting authenticity, and see if they're even capable of it. Often they'll deflect or reinforce the mask. Protect yourself by recognizing that their perfect act is their problem, not your failing. You deserve relationships where you know who you're really dealing with, where trust is built on truth, not illusion. The next type takes the mask issue even further. It's the person who so denies their darker side that they appear absolutely perfect, and in doing so, let their hidden darkness wreak havoc around them. 3. The shadow denier, the saint with a scary shadow. They seem impeccable. Perhaps it's a partner who is always polite, always accommodating, never angry, an absolute saint. Or a friend who is relentlessly positive and morally upright, the last person you'd imagine doing something nasty. You might think, wow, they're almost too perfect. And you'd be right. The shadow. Denier is someone who refuses to acknowledge their own darker impulses and emotions. In Jungian terms, they repress their shadow, all the qualities they deem bad or unacceptable, in order to maintain a saintly persona. But as Jung famously observed, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. In other words, the more we deny our shadow, the more powerfully it operates without us knowing. And often, that hidden darkness finds ways to manifest, hurting those around the shadow denier. What does this look like in real life? Imagine that perfect partner who never gets angry. Instead of expressing anger, their repressed shadow might seep out in subtle digs or cold passive aggression. They'll deny anything is wrong, but you'll feel a chill in the air, a quiet punishment. Or consider a friend who preaches high morals and never admits to jealousy or selfishness. Her facade is so virtuous. Yet, when you achieve something great, she isn't truly happy for you. She might sabotage your moment with a faint praise or suddenly withdraw. These are signs of the shadow at work. Because the shadow denier can't face their own envy, anger, or selfish desires, those feelings get projected or displaced in unhealthy ways. They might unconsciously manipulate others to act out the very emotions they refuse to acknowledge. You could end up carrying their anger or acting out their denied negativity within the relationship. It's like dealing with a calm surface ocean that hides dangerous rip currents. Everything looks fine until you're pulled under by forces you didn't see coming. Jung provided a striking example. He once met a man of great reputation. A very venerable personage, one might easily call him a saint, seemingly without fault. Yet Jung discovered that this man's wife suffered terribly. Any man who becomes one with his persona can let all disturbances manifest themselves through his wife. She pays for his self-sacrifice with a bad neurosis, he noted. In other words, the man's refusal to own his shadow meant the psychological poison had to go somewhere, and it went straight into his closest companion, driving her into distress. This is the cost of extreme shadow denial. Those around the person start falling apart, picking up the dark emotions that the shadow denier won't deal with. If you've ever lived or worked with someone who insists on being faultless, you may have found yourself oddly anxious, guilty, or angry around them, as if their unacknowledged badness was seeping into you. Dealing with a shadow denier can silently erode your sanity. You may feel like you have to be the bad one because they are intent on being the good one. You might constantly second-guess any negative feelings. Maybe it's just me. It can't be them. They're so nice. Which is crazy-making. The key to protect yourself here is to trust your gut over the immaculate appearance they project. Nobody is perfect, and if someone pretends to be, something's off. Do not absorb another person's disowned emotions. If you sense hidden anger or contempt behind that saccharine smile, you're probably right. Healthy relationships allow honest expression of both positive and negative feelings. The saintly friend, who never can be real about their struggles or frustrations, might not be so saintly after all. By recognizing the shadow they deny, you can avoid getting caught in its undertow. and perhaps, if the situation allows, you can gently encourage them to acknowledge those human flaws, to take off the halo and be real. If not, keep your distance emotionally, lest you become the dumping ground for their darkness. 4. The projectionist, the mirror accuser. After all I've done for you, you're so ungrateful, says the friend who you've bent over backwards to help. The same friend who rarely lifts a finger for you. Or maybe it's a partner who chronically cheats, accusing you of infidelity. Or a coworker who calls you incompetent when they're the one dropping the ball. Welcome to the twisted world of projection. The projectionist is the person who relentlessly casts their own flaws, fears, or unacceptable feelings onto you. In their mind, you are the selfish one. You are the aggressor. You are whatever they cannot face being. It's one of the most maddening experiences because you find yourself constantly on the defensive, trying to prove a reality that should be obvious. This person is effectively looking in a mirror and describing themselves, but they think they're describing you. Why do they do this? Jungian psychology explains that projection is an unconscious defense mechanism. What a person refuses to see in themselves, they see in others. The projectionist is often utterly convinced that the problem lies outside them. Jung observed that owning one's shadow requires considerable moral effort, and many people resist that effort mightily. It's easier to believe the bad trait or impulse is out there. As Jung wrote, the cause of the emotion appears to lie, beyond all possibility of doubt, in the other person to someone deep in projection. Arguing with a projectionist, therefore, is often futile. You're up against a psychological blind spot. They genuinely do not see that they are talking about themselves. It's as if their own unknown traits are being painted onto you like a film projector casting an image on a screen. Jung put it poetically. Projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face. The projectionist, in effect, interacts with this replica, a distorted version of you that carries their demons, rather than who you really are. This is deeply isolating and frustrating, as you're not being seen for you at all. The impact on your well-being can be severe. Being on the receiving end of constant projection is a form of gaslighting. It can make you doubt your own sense of self and reality. You might start wondering, am I crazy? They say I'm selfish, or angry, or cheating, etc., but I know I'm not. Or am I somehow causing this? Over time, this inverts your sense of truth. You become anxious and hyper-vigilant, walking on eggshells to avoid triggering yet another accusation. You may even become angry and defensive, which the projectionist will then use as proof that their accusations were right all along. It's a vicious circle. The more they project their hostility onto you, the more upset you become, and then they point at your justifiable upset as evidence of your poor character. This can whittle down your self-esteem and sanity. How to cope? Ground yourself in reality. Keep a firm grip on your own identity and actions. If you know in your heart that you've been honest or kind or faithful, do not let their relentless blame games convince you otherwise. Remind yourself that you are staring at their unresolved issues, not yours. You might even respond calmly with something like, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't see myself in that description." Sometimes gently turning the mirror back. It's interesting you say that, because I've noticed you often do X, can momentarily crack the projection. But be careful, as it can also provoke anger. In many cases, the best you can do is set firm boundaries. Refuse to take on guilt that isn't yours. If the projectionist in your life is a friend or partner, insist on couples counseling or mediation, where a third party can help reflect reality. In some cases, You may decide to step away entirely. You can't force someone to confront their shadow if they refuse. Protect your mental well-being by refusing the role they've assigned you. You are not their mirror or their punching bag for self-hatred. You are you, and you know who you are. As you hold on to that, their projections will eventually fall flat, like arrows missing the target. And without your agreement to play the part in their inner drama, the projectionist may finally have to face the one person they've been running from: themselves. 5. The victim martyr, weaponized vulnerability. At first, you just want to help them. They seem so helpless, mistreated by the world. Every week there's a new crisis: unfair boss, cruel ex-friend, another illness or stroke of bad luck. You care deeply, so you step up to support. But gradually you realize nothing ever changes. In fact, the more you help, the more entrenched their victimhood becomes. And something else happens. You start to feel guilty, drained, even blamed. Welcome to the victim martyr, the person with a perpetual victim complex who silently destroys you by pulling you into their endless pity party. This is the friend or family member who always suffers more than anyone else. Any advice or encouragement you give falls on deaf ears. They're not interested in solutions, only sympathy. Over time, their constant tales of woe and neediness become a one-way street. Your life, your needs, your boundaries all take a backseat to their drama. And if ever you fail to be there for them, prepare for guilt trips and insinuations that you're abandoning them after all they've been through. Psychologically, this person is often caught in an unconscious complex as well, one that idolizes suffering or uses weakness as a form of control. We might call it a martyr complex. They derive a sense of identity and even moral superiority from being the one who endures pain. Jungians would say they are identified with the victim archetype, and any move toward actually solving their issues feels like a loss of identity. So they sabotage it. There's also frequently a manipulation at play. By making you feel sorry for them, they secure your attachment. You become the caretaker, the shoulder to cry on, effectively chained to them by their dependency. This is what the video description referred to as psychological dependency. The victim martyr creates a dynamic where you feel responsible for their well-being. And because they always have a crisis, you can never do enough. It's like an emotional black hole. The more you give, the more it demands, leaving you emotionally exhausted. Notice how subtle this destruction is. Unlike an overt abuser, the martyr isn't yelling at you or insulting you. Instead, they're doing something perhaps more insidious. They weaponize their suffering. Your empathy is turned against you. You cancel your plans to comfort them yet again. You lend money you really can't afford. You tolerate behavior you normally wouldn't, like them calling at all hours or dumping emotional baggage on you non-stop. All because you don't want to kick them while they're down. But somehow they are always down. And if you ever draw a line, say you can't talk for 2 hours tonight about the same dilemma for the 10th time, they might quietly imply that you're unkind or just like everyone else who's hurt me. That hits your conscience, and wham, you're back, apologizing to them. They have successfully made you feel like the bad guy for having your own needs. Over time, this guilt and manipulation can seriously damage your self-worth. You feel like maybe you are selfish for wanting a life outside their problems. You may become isolated from other friends or opportunities because attending to the martyr consumes your time and energy. Your mental health suffers as you suppress your frustration. After all, you tell yourself, I can't be mad at them. They've had it so hard. It's a slow, soul-sapping erosion of your joy. To reclaim your well-being, a tough realization is required. You are not this person's savior, and it's not truly helping them to feed into their victimhood. In fact, by constantly rescuing them, you might be enabling the cycle. It can feel cruel to step back, but ask yourself, has all your sacrificing actually improved their situation or outlook? Likely not. They remain stuck, and you are now stuck with them. It's time to gently but firmly put down the weight that was never yours to carry. Encourage them to seek professional help or to take concrete steps to change their circumstances. Set clear boundaries. You can offer an empathetic ear to a point, but you are not on call 24/7 for drama, and you won't be manipulated by guilt. The victim martyr might react with disappointment, or try harder to pull your heartstrings when you create boundaries. That's a sign their complex is fighting to stay in control. Stay compassionate, but strong. You can say, I care about you, but I also need time for my own life. I trust you'll manage this. This subtly signals that you believe in their agency, something they lack belief in, and also that your support is conditional on respect for your boundaries. They may seek a new savior if you won't play the role, and though that hurts, it might ultimately be for the best. Remember Jung's wisdom. The more we allow complexes to possess us, the more they will run the show. The victim's complex will run your life if you let it. Free yourself from that quiet captivity. You deserve relationships where support flows both ways, and where guilt is not the glue holding you together. 6. The emotional vampire, energy drainer. Have you ever had a conversation that left you feeling exhausted, as if the very life was sucked out of you? Perhaps you went into a meeting or a friendly catch-up feeling fine, and by the end you felt anxious, depressed, or inexplicably heavy. You may have just encountered an emotional vampire. This type of person doesn't necessarily intend to harm. Nonetheless, they feed on your emotional energy like a psychic leech. They might be the chronic complainer who always finds something wrong and drags everyone's mood into the mud. Or the dramatic friend whose life is a constant soap opera of intense highs and lows, and you are cast as the constant stabilizer and audience. Or even the charismatic soul who thrills at stirring up emotions in others, positive or negative, just to feel alive. What they all have in common is an unspoken emptiness, a lack of internal emotional stability or positive energy, which they compensate for by siphoning it from those around them. Jung's framework can shed light here, even though he didn't use the term energy vampire. Often, these individuals are people who have not learned to draw from their own inner resources. Their connection to self, the self in Jungian terms, is weak, so they unconsciously turn outward to regulate their emotions. This can happen due to an underlying complex as well, for example, an inferiority complex that drives someone to constantly seek reassurance and validation from others. Or perhaps a person's persona is bubbly and upbeat in public, but their private self feels dead, so they excite or provoke others to spark feelings they can't generate alone. In any case, the emotional vampire's unconscious motto is, I feel empty, so I need your emotional reaction to fill me. Being around them, you'll notice your mood always ends up mirroring theirs or catering to their needs. If they're anxious, you find yourself soothing them. If they're angry and ranting, you get pulled into the agitation. If they're sad, you become their cheerleader. It's automatic, and that is the hallmark of this toxic dynamic. You effectively become an extension of their psyche, a plug-in battery for their emotional needs. The toll this takes on you cannot be overstated. It's often gradual. You might not notice how much this person is draining you until you feel burned out or strangely depressed whenever you see them. Over time, you might develop anxiety anticipating your interactions, knowing you'll be met with a torrent of need or negativity. Your own joys and struggles get eclipsed. There's no room for them because the emotional vampire dominates the emotional space. In the long run, constant exposure can lead to emotional exhaustion, stress-related symptoms, headaches, fatigue, and even a loss of your sense of self. You become so attuned to their emotional world that you lose contact with your own. Jung believed that a strong self, individuated self, is one that maintains healthy boundaries and autonomy. In a relationship with an emotional vampire, those boundaries become porous. Your energy bleeds out to them, and their chaos bleeds into you. To protect yourself, establish firm, energetic boundaries. This can be both practical and mental. Practically, limit the time you spend in their emotional whirlwind. It's okay to politely exit a conversation or decline a hangout if you're not up for being an emotional sponge. Mentally, practice observing rather than absorbing. Imagine a shield around you when you're with them. Their words and feelings bounce off instead of soaking in. You can acknowledge their feelings. I hear you're really frustrated, without leaping in to feel it all with them. It's also helpful to redirect them toward self-sufficiency. If they always come to you to vent, encourage journaling, therapy, or other outlets. They may resist. After all, an energy source is being unplugged. But a true friend will understand that you have your limits too. One more key point. Don't blame yourself. Emotional vampires are often experts at making you feel obligated. You might think, if I don't help them, who will? They need me. But remember, every adult ultimately needs to take responsibility for their own emotional management. You are not abandoning them by setting boundaries. You are respecting both your well-being and their capacity to grow. By refusing to be an endless supply, you're encouraging them, consciously or not, to find a more sustainable way to deal with life. And by protecting your energy, you ensure that your light stays bright, instead of being gradually dimmed by someone else's darkness. From shadow to self, embracing awareness and healing. We have journeyed through the shadows cast by 6 kinds of people, from the manipulator pulling strings in the dark, to the false friend in a mask, the saint who won't face his devil, the accuser pointing fingers in a mirror, the eternal victim chaining you with pity, and the soul sapper who drains your spirit dry. It's a lot to take in, and you might be feeling a mix of recognition, relief, or even sadness. Perhaps names and faces flashed in your mind with each description. You might be realizing, with a chill, just how much these quiet, toxic dynamics have affected you over the years. That is a powerful insight. And it leads us to an empowering truth. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. Carl Jung's psychology ultimately guides us toward self-awareness and individuation, the process of becoming whole and true to oneself. It's not about demonizing others or playing victim to these toxic types. It's about learning to see clearly so that you are no longer an unconscious participant in someone else's psychological projections or manipulations. Jung said that individuation means becoming one's own self, out of all the collective roles and expectations. In the context of our discussion, individuation means stepping out of the entangling roles these people try to press upon you. The puppet, the audience, the savior, the scapegoat, and asserting your true identity and boundaries. It means recognizing the shadows at play, both in others and in your own self. Yes, in your own self. Because the final turn of the mirror in our journey is this. Having identified these 6 types out there, you are now invited to look within. Strong rhetorical question. Have you ever, even a little, embodied one of these patterns yourself? It's not easy to admit, Our ego resists seeing our own shadow. But we all have the capacity. Maybe in a moment of insecurity you found yourself guilt-tripping a loved one, a flicker of the unconscious manipulator, or perhaps you've worn a polite mask while harboring resentment, a touch of shadow denier. These types teach us not only what to avoid in others, but what to heal in ourselves. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The toxic people we've discussed are largely ruled by their unconscious. They cause harm without understanding why. But you, having watched this far, are shining light on those unconscious forces. You're pulling back the curtain on the shadowy puppeteers of human behavior. This awareness is a gift, one that allows you to change your interactions and break cycles. So, what can you do moving forward? First, strengthen your boundaries with these types of people. You now recognize the signs: the subtle pressure, the mask, the one-way empathy, the projected blame, the endless complaints, the energy drain. Trust those red flags. You have every right to distance yourself or assert limits. Protecting your mental and emotional well-being isn't selfish, it's necessary. Second, cultivate empathy with detachment. Understand that these people are often not evil. They are frequently wounded souls acting out of fear, insecurity, or ignorance. You can have compassion for their suffering without allowing them to drag you down. It's like seeing a drowning person. You can toss them a lifebuoy, but if you jump in without caution, you both drown. Know when to step back for your own sake. Third, and most important, continue your own journey of self-awareness. Use the knowledge of Jung's concepts, persona, shadow, projection, complexes, as tools to examine yourself honestly. Where are your blind spots? What triggers you? And could it be a projection of something within? The more you do this inner work, the less hold other people's shadows will have on you. You become solid in who you are, individuated, and such a person is not easily manipulated or drained. Jung believed that by confronting our own unconscious parts, we reclaim the energy we had unknowingly given away. You essentially take back your power from any external psychic vampires or internal complexes that would steal it. As we conclude, I invite you to reflect, and, if you feel safe, to share. Which of these 6 silent destroyers have you encountered in your life? How did you recognize it, and what did you do to break free? Perhaps you're still figuring it out. That's okay. Maybe this video stirred an aha moment about a relationship or past experience. I encourage you to share your story or insight in the comments. By doing so, you not only affirm your own understanding, but you might also help someone else realize they're not alone in what they've felt. Have you also caught yourself being one of these 6 types at times? It's brave to admit, but in owning our shadows, we take away their ability to control us from behind the scenes. This is the path of growth that Jung spoke of, integrating the shadow, dissolving harmful projections, and freeing ourselves from the complexes that bind us. You deserve to live free of silent emotional sabotage. By identifying these toxic types and understanding the psychology behind them, you've taken a crucial step toward that freedom. From here on, may you cultivate relationships that are mutual, conscious, and nourishing. And may your strengthened awareness act as a light, illuminating the dark corners where silent destroyers lurk and banishing their power over you. After all, when you bring light into a dark room, the shadows don't stand a chance. Your journey to self-awareness and empowerment is underway. Keep going. We're all in this process of becoming more whole, more true, and more alive. As you move forward, remember Jung's encouraging words. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Choose to become someone who is awake, aware, and free. Your mind and heart will thank you for it. Now it's your turn. Share your thoughts below. Have you met these silent saboteurs? How have you handled them? Or what challenges do you face? Let's support each other in this journey of setting ourselves free. Your story matters, and in voicing it, you take back your power. Here's to your growth, your healing, and the radiant strength of an aware mind.